you're going to be doing some work today, and it's just nice to get it off to a fresh start. So we always have a wish inspiration component, and this year it is a little different. Lots of times we're bringing the children in, and you're seeing the wishes that are for the much younger children. And this year this perspective is much different. I think that we're a mature organization, and with it, some of our children have matured. And Spring is going to tell a little bit of the story about how she has come to know the organization and has come to love Make-A-Wish and back at her as well. We love her very, very much. She's a very special gal, and I'm excited that she's here to share a story with you today. And I hope you enjoy it. With that is Spring Tart, and that is her real name. So I'll go ahead and ask Spring.
Okay. Well, Donna, thank you for the great introduction and for not making me cry. Yeah, just to get out of the way, yes, that is my real name. Spring was my mother's maiden name, and Tart just happens to be my married name. And in case you're wondering, I've heard every joke about this. Right out of the way. As Donna said, I'm a former Wish child, and actually I'm also a former employee with the foundation. I worked here in the Seattle office from February of 2006 to April of 2008, and it was just the best work experience I've ever had in my life. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit later. But today, I'd like to talk to you most about my personal journey through the hopelessness of a cancer diagnosis to the strength of recovery. But most of all, I want to talk to you about discovering the lifelong impact that a wish come true can have. As with all lifetime journeys, there are specific dates that one never forgets. For example, dates like your anniversary, hopefully we all remember that, the day you graduated from college, the day your children were born, the day that loved ones passed away. I can go on and on. But my journey, the most pivotal date in my life that I'll never forget, began on Monday, November 6, 1995. This was the day I was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia. And my life obviously changed forever from that point on. My diagnosis story, I could almost take up my entire time with that, so I'll make a long story short. The entire month before I was diagnosed, the month of October, I was just really, really, really sick. And I had never been a sick kid, you know, I had occasional flu or cold, but that's it. I had bad bronchitis that never went away. And the weekend before I was diagnosed, I developed a swollen lymph gland right under my chin. And I was so absolutely lethargic and fatigued beyond belief. I mean, I couldn't even get off the couch. That's how amazingly tired and just weak I was. So that Monday, my mom, and she still owes me $1 million for this because she said, I bet you $1 million you have mono. I was a teenager, I had the classic symptoms, and the only way to test for mono is to do a blood draw and get a blood sample. So we marched right in again for about the 5th time in 5 weeks to my general practitioner's office. They drew some blood, and as soon as they looked at the sample, it was obvious from that I had leukemia. And I was living in Gig Harbor at the time, so they sent me straight over that afternoon to Mary Bridge Hospital in Tacoma, and I was admitted into the hospital right away. The next, to go into my treatment, the next day, November 7th, I was administered my first chemo treatment, and because my case was very, as the name says, it was very acute. I had cancer cells just everywhere, and my counts were extremely high. So they wanted to start chemo right away. And I had an extremely, extremely rare reaction to my first chemo treatment. It's called tumor lysis syndrome, and this is also a very long story, so I'll try and make it short. I had a large group of cancer cells gathered around my thymus gland, about the size of a grapefruit, and from what I learned in the past, chemotherapy is supposed to kill cancer cells at a gradual rate. There's because when they die, the cells explode, and there's a chemical inside the cancer cell called interleukin. And from what I understand, again, haven't been to medical school, but from what I understand, your body can handle a little bit of interleukin at a time as the cancer cells are gradually killed off. But since my first chemo treatment did such a fantastic job of killing a ton of cancer cells all at once, my body was flooded with this interleukin chemical, and my body shut down. My blood pressure dropped to the floor. I was having trouble breathing. They had to bring in a crash cart into my room. I don't really obviously remember any of this. It's been told to me. But they were barely able to find a vein because my blood pressure was so low, my veins were collapsing, and they had to get an IV started. So all I remember from the episode is just feeling needle pokes all up and down my arm and my leg, and just getting poked everywhere because they were trying to start an IV. And they were able to get me stable enough to get me up one floor to the ICU. And the doctors at first, they had no idea what was going on. It took them a long time, I think, afterwards, analyzing my case to figure out exactly what had happened. And they told my parents that night, we don't know what's going on, or she may have a blood infection, because one minute my blood chemistry was all over the place. My potassium would be up one minute, then my calcium was up, and then they would switch. It was just a crazy situation. And they told my parents I probably wouldn't make it through that night. But they were wrong. I had other things to do. And obviously I pulled through that episode. It was really scary. I don't remember any of it. They gave me some type of amnesia drug while I was in ICU, so I wouldn't remember it, which is good. My dad likes to call it Disneyland drug. And about 2.5 weeks later, I was discharged from Marybridge, and I got to go home right before Thanksgiving. So if you want to show those photos. This one here is when I was in the ICU, and I don't really remember, but I just remember machines and noise all the time, just beeping and tubes everywhere. And that Christmas photo is shortly after I got home. So, and those were I wore the heck out of those slippers that winter to keep my feet warm. So, and my protocol for my treatment called for 2 years of chemotherapy treatment and a short period of 2 weeks of radiation to the brain. And if you want to show that, this is my oncologist, Dr. Thomas. He's still in business down at Marybridge, and he's also does regular pediatric work with a group called Pediatrics Northwest. He's absolutely fantastic. I can't rave enough about the staff at Marybridge. The Children's Hospital here in Seattle obviously gets a lot of credit, and it's definitely due. I mean, they do amazing things, but I think sometimes people forget about the South Sound and all the work that Marybridge does. I wouldn't be alive without the excellent care I received there. So, and he was at my wedding, and I still visit him, and I keep tabs on him, send him Christmas pictures and all of that. So, and if you want to show the next one, this is when I had my radiation treatment, and I could almost do an entire stand-up routine about radiation therapy. It's the strangest experience I've ever had in my life. There's no pain involved, obviously, but they say they want you to lay on this table, don't move a muscle, and they strapped my face down underneath this mesh thing to keep my head still, so they could get the exact point they wanted to radiate. And then they say, you're going to be just fine, but we all are going to walk out of the room, stand behind this giant lead-shielded door, and hear you. You're going to be just fine. Don't worry. And it was just a very strange experience, to say the least. And obviously, it was an extremely difficult time. I lost touch with friends. They had their own lives going on in high school and all that. And Patton here, named after the general, my dog, kind of replaced